All right, what's happening, man? Sorry I'm doing a video, dude, but I figured I was gonna have a lot to say, and I'm driving, so I'm gonna be paying attention to the road, and I didn't want to have to hold on to that button the whole time. But okay, I agree with you. I would rather, within the context of this whole thing, talk about things that we need to at least think about how we are going to defend certain situations, right? So human trafficking to me is the biggest one. But I want to go back real quick, not to try to reintroduce this whole thing or nothing like that, but just to tell you where I'm coming from. As far as wars go, I am against war too. But I believe that, and kind of some of the things that John guy is saying in that conversation, I'm in agreement with that too, and I'm in agreement with you, and I think where Keith is coming from too. It's all a beautiful place, right? And I'm in agreement with those things as far as I wish that there wasn't a need for it. As far as my whole need for it would be from a position of defense. So the scenario with the Iron Dome, knowing beyond a shadow of a doubt that nobody else's nuclear weapons could penetrate it, I'd be all for it. Do I think that we have that kind of technology? Possibly. Do I think that we're smart enough, human beings are smart enough to create that type of technology? Yes. But where I'm coming from is, dude, I was in the military for 10 years, and literally my entire job, the entire 10 years, was to guard nuclear weapons. When they were in transit, we were convoying them on country roads and on interstates. I developed tactics that they use to this day in order to protect these nukes. I know a lot about nuclear weapons and the purpose behind us having them. I know what it takes in order to launch one. I know who it is that's going to be launching them. When they say stuff like, you don't want Donald Trump to be able to have the keys to launch a nuclear weapon, like when Hillary Clinton says that, she knows it's bullshit. Because no person in the world can launch a nuclear weapon on their own. Nobody, to include the President of the United States. The President of the United States is a part of that launch, but there's a lot of authentications, there's a lot more people involved, there are other people that are actually turning keys. So if the President just said, screw it, I'm just launching a nuke, or people think that the nuclear football that the guy carries around with the suit has a suitcase, that literally is a nuclear football, and it literally is what we think it is, where they turn a key, but he's authenticating and actually turning a key alongside with somebody else in the world. Okay? So these people know that. So it's just a fear tactic, right? But to get more out of this is, as far as the war stuff goes, if everything was good, right? If we had a perfect world, if we didn't have the Hitlers of the world, or now we can say, if we didn't have people even in the United States that we need to defend ourselves against, right? We wouldn't have to have that, right? I believe that we're on the brink of civil war again, right? You go back to, what was it, the Revolutionary War in America, 1776. I could be wrong on all this stuff, but I got to go back and look at things. But they tried to take the guns from the Patriots, and they said, no, it ain't happening. That's the only reason why we're still armed to this day. They tried to take our guns. What's happening in Australia right now is because the people do not have guns. The government has turned against them. Might have always been against them, but the government is showing their true colors right now. Those are the very things that we're walking towards right now in America. If we were not armed, we would be just as harmed as Australia is, and God forbid, just like Venezuela or just like Cuba and all these places that are unarmed. I think we might be the only citizens now that are armed. And now here's the other side of that though too. We are so heavily armed that we have more as civilians in America. We have more weapons. We have 3 times more weapons as civilians in America than all of the big powers and military powers in the globe combined. all of them combined, we still have triple the amount that they have. To me, I'm going to include this into nuclear weapons. That is what I was always trained on with all this protection of nuclear weapons and all that, is it's used as a deterrent. In other words, if I did not have a gun in my home and I do not advertise that, and I don't have this, I don't have a sign outside my door saying, you come in my house, I'm going to blow you away. I've got lethal authorization to blow you away, right? And maybe I should, because that would be more of a deterrent. It would make somebody think twice. Hey, this person is set up and they're ready to go. They're ready to protect themselves. But if they want to come after my daughter, they're going to. If they want to do it, they're going to try, you know? And if they bring enough people, it would take enough violence and enough people to conquer me in order to get that. But they're going to meet me with violence, right? Because they're doing something they ought not to do. Go to animalistic instincts. If we were walking in the woods and all of a sudden we see a bear cub, and one of our friends walks up to the bear cub and kicks it in the face, and the mama's right there, the mom's going to absolutely obliterate that person, if not all of us around. That's an animalistic instinct. To me, that makes it more clear that it's natural, for the sake of the survival of your loved ones and yourself, that you're going to defend yourself. So I agree with you in that sense, where if somebody were to kick in your door and try to take your kid, fuck yes, I'm going to fuck them up, point blank. But I like to be able to have the means to do so. So then I go into my use of force training, and this is the things I'm trying to explain to Keith and John and them in that conversation, is with every single aspect that we've seen with this Black Lives Matter things, where George Floyd is a completely different situation. That's not what happened with George Floyd, okay? George Floyd was not bringing violence toward those police officers. Those police officers used excessive force, and they absolutely deserve to have life in prison. They murdered somebody. I believe that that's clear to everybody, right? But there's a lot of instances where Black Lives Matter rises up. They don't care about black on black crime that's happening in Chicago. I bring up Chicago because that is a city that has been disarmed. So the innocent people, the law-abiding citizens, have turned in their weapons. Except you've got a lot of other people out there that said, screw that, and they're using their weapon, they're turning it on each other, right? I don't know necessarily if they're going out, but a lot of innocent bystanders get hit with stray bullets and stuff. So anyway, you've got, let me get my train of thought again. Okay, so what I was going towards was, within my military training, I literally had to go through law enforcement academy, okay? I was a security forces member, I was a police officer in the military, is what I did. And every single year we had use of force training, and it was just like all other training in the military, man. It becomes like muscle memory. Over and over and over, you do all of this type of training, and it's amazing. And I know law enforcement throughout America go through this type of training too. They're fully enveloped in every single bit of what it is that they need to do in every scenario. They train it and train it and train it over and over and over. And I'm not saying that some abuse the power that they have because they feel as though they have power. These are the people that we're trying to talk about, right? These are people that we don't want to have the position that they have, and I'm in agreement with that completely, absolutely. I believe that those folks need to be vetted a lot more, and if any time they step out of bounds, they're done, right? That's the way I think it should be. Keith Giles just responded, or he liked the comment, but anyhow, the use of force, literally, and I'll show you a model. I got it in that post with Keith Giles, just down under the conversation. There's a model, and I know it. Like, it was just completely ingrained into us, right? To where the officer's response is only allowed to be based off the subject's action. And it's all designed around using the minimum amount of force necessary to discharge your duties, right? So if we use that as Because every single time we watch, when Black Lives Matter reacts, or anybody reacts to police, whether they handled it correctly or mishandled it, if you use that use of force model, you understand this police officer was trained to protect life, even the life of the person that was trying to kill other people, right? If that other person, again, it's designed to use the minimum amount of force necessary, right? I am not an advocate for violence. I can't stand violence. It scares me. I don't even like to watch UFC fights, man. But if you're using the minimum amount of force necessary, what it is if somebody is using lethal force against you, in other words, they have a weapon and they point it at you, the officer is required, or if they has a weapon and they point it at themselves, or if they have a weapon and they point it at somebody else, the officer is required to aim center mass and take that person down. They're authorized, literally it's called deadly force. I'll put it to you like this, as far as nuclear weapons goes. My protection of nuclear weapons, if somebody were to break into the facility that the weapon was sitting on, its launcher itself, or into the facility where the weapon was being stored, if somebody was to break in there, every single 100 feet all the way around the gate of that whole entire place, it says, warning, if you enter this, deadly force is authorized, and I would have every single right to do that. Now, I would personally believe I was not using my use of force. I would have had it right, but I wasn't using the proper officer response if there wasn't a threat against me. If that person did not was not touching a nuke and trying to do something to destroy it because it is a priority one resource, if that person was not trying to harm me in any way or anybody else or themselves, the deadly force would not have been used by me, but I would have been authorized. So maybe that's within the whole question that we're talking about. I know I'm getting long here, man, but I just wanted to kind of bring you into like where I'm coming from and what the military mentality is, and I believe that law enforcement is within that same mentality. A lot of these videos I see, and a lot of these things that coming apart, I break it down like that, and I see it from a different lens, I think, than most people do. I'm looking at it as, was this police officer authorized to do this? And was this the only resort? Was this the last resort? Was this the last thing that this police officer was able to do? And if you analyze it from that standpoint, then you're going to see that a lot of the times they followed what they were required to do. Sometimes they don't. And when they don't, I believe that we should be able to speak up with that and say, hey, that officer went and used excessive force. They're done, right? Okay, but what it all boils down to me is I am in complete agreement that I am also against violence. I wish violence didn't have to happen, and that's the key right there. I wish it didn't have to happen. But right now, as I'm making this video, right this very second, there is somebody being harmed in a violent way, like a woman being beat by her husband. There's domestic battery going on. There are children being raped. There are satanic sacrifices possibly happening right this moment. And if any one of those things presented themselves in front of me,